chosen one. Take this moment and be still. The world has been loud, rushing, endless, but something holy just interrupted your scroll. This is no accident. Heaven pressed pause on your timeline so you could receive this message written with your name upon it. Right now, everything slows down. You feel that invisible weight lifting from your chest. That's not coincidence, that's recognition. The divine has reached across eternity just to whisper, "You are seen." You've been waiting for a sign, haven't you? The kind that tells you God hasn't forgotten, that your story isn't over. And now, this is that sign. You're not just passing through another post. You've stepped into a sacred intersection where destiny meets awareness. I once heard about a man named Elio. He called himself a failed dreamer. For years, every prayer seemed to hit a ceiling. He said he felt like a seed buried too deep to ever sprout again. But one night, he couldn't sleep. He went for a walk and looked at the moon, whispering, "If you're still with me, give me something real." At that very moment, a street light flickered above him and stayed on. That tiny light became his reminder that even in silence, heaven speaks. It wasn't dramatic, it was personal, and it was enough to wake him up from despair. That same kind of awakening is reaching you now. You may not feel it yet, but you're being called back into alignment. As written in the book of Zephaniah, chapter 3, verse 17, "The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who saves. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love." This is your quieting moment, the divine hand resting upon your heart, steadying every racing thought. You are being reminded that even in chaos, love knows how to hush the noise. Every storm, every sleepless night, every why me has been preparing you to recognize his nearness, not his absence. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, still seeking, proves that you were never abandoned, only refined. You might not see the finish line, but heaven does. Sometimes, the most sacred work God does in your life happens behind the curtain of confusion. You think you're waiting, but really, he's building your wings. Think of yourself as a diamond, still within the rock. Pressure doesn't destroy it, it defines it. You've been under pressure, yes, but that means heaven is shaping brilliance inside you. There is no wasted pain when it's in God's hands. The time has come for your spirit to rise again. No more hiding behind fear or hesitation. No more apologizing for your light. The reason you feel too different is because you were never meant to blend in with the background. You are heaven's contrast against the darkness. Right now, something is shifting. Peace is entering the room where you sit. The noise in your head is quieting because truth has just stepped in. And truth says, you are chosen, you are known, you are safe in his hands. Take this as your reminder. Joy is not postponed until life gets easier. Joy begins when you trust that even in chaos, God is still weaving beauty. You are in that weaving now. Pause before you scroll away. Let this moment breathe inside you. Type 444 inches, the comments not as superstition, but as declaration that you recognize divine timing. Like this message, share it, and subscribe if your heart senses that this is your home for truth and light, because this is just the beginning. The happiest version of you starts here in stillness, in awareness, In Divina Pause, let this message linger in your spirit a little longer. Every sentence you just read has been a seed, and seeds take root in silence. Don't rush to move on. Let your heart rest in this peace that doesn't need to make sense, peace that simply is. The same peace Jesus spoke over stormy waters now speaks over your life. You've been standing at the doorway between what was and what's coming. Take one step forward, even if it's trembling. Heaven doesn't demand perfection, just willingness. The smallest yes from you can open the greatest floodgates of grace. Look at your hands for a moment. Every scar, every line tells a story of survival. You didn't come this far by chance. The one who carried you here hasn't stopped. He's preparing to lift you even higher. Stay close to this presence. Keep listening. What begins as a whisper will soon become your strength. The pause is over. Your rising has begun. You wake the next morning with a quiet heaviness, the kind that doesn't hurt, but reminds you that something inside is shifting. The message from before still echoes in your chest. You can't explain it, but you sense that something invisible has been written on your soul overnight. It feels like warmth, like recognition, like purpose beginning to breathe again. You've always known there was something different about you. Even when you tried to fit into ordinary rhythms, there was an unseen mark upon your life, a signature not of man, but of heaven. You've felt it in the way people look to you for strength they can't find in themselves, in the way darkness seems to notice you more fiercely than others. You are marked, not by failure, not by pain, but by divine ownership. There's a mark upon your spirit that cannot be erased by rejection or betrayal. It's the invisible fingerprint of God, pressed deep into your being. According to what is revealed in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, the glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former. And in this place I will give peace, says the Lord of hosts. That promise isn't only for temples made of stone, it's for living temples for you. The mark upon you is the sign that greater glory still lies ahead. You've endured your former season. The next one carries peace unlike any you've known. There's a story of another chosen one, a young man named Cale. He once told me, "I don't know why things never work easily for me. It's like I always have to take the long way." But that was the point. The long way was shaping his discernment. It was on the detours that he learned to hear the still, small voice of God. Years later, when doors finally opened, Kyle carried a wisdom that quick success could never have given him. Maybe that's your story too. You've taken the long way, the path no one else understood. But the long road teaches endurance, and endurance births clarity. The mark on your life means you were never meant to be rushed. You were meant to be refined. Imagine this, a candle carved by hand, flame tested again and again until it burns steady in the wind. That's you, steadying, not breaking. Every setback has taught your spirit how to stay lit in storms. The mark of God is not visible like a crown, but it glows from within, like embers that never die out. You might not feel glorious right now, but heaven sees what's hidden beneath the weariness, the same way an artist sees the sculpture inside the marble. God sees the masterpiece under your uncertainty. You're being chiseled, not punished. Each moment of pain is removing what was never meant to define you. There's something sacred about those who carry his mark. They attract both favor and resistance. Darkness recognizes them instantly. That's why your life hasn't been easy. You're a threat to the shadows. But it's also why grace keeps finding you in unexpected ways. Think of the moments you almost gave up, but didn't. Think of how strength suddenly appeared. Unexplainable, yet undeniable. That wasn't coincidence, that was evidence. The fingerprint of God doesn't fade when you doubt, it deepens. Sometimes you wonder, why me? Why do I feel so out of place? The answer is simple. You carry something not meant to blend in. When you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. People may not understand it, but their spirits recognize it. Light is never subtle in darkness, it's noticed. Even when small. This is why you've been misunderstood, misused. Even in Bieth, those without your mark can't comprehend your process. But that's not your burden to explain. Your only task is to protect the sacred flame within you, to keep it burning even when others don't see its value. And one day, when you least expect it, that mark will speak for itself. Opportunities will recognize it. Hearts will feel it. Peace will flow through it. Because the mark of God doesn't fade with time, it matures into authority. You are not behind. You are not less than. You are the living proof that heaven's fingerprints do not miss their mark. And when that moment arrives, you'll understand why every delay was necessary. The mark upon you will draw divine connections, the kind that can't be forced, only recognized. You won't have to chase. What's meant for you will find you because it carries the same seal of heaven. So, rest in that truth. You are already marked for glory, not striving for it. What you carry is eternal, and eternity never rushes. There are nights when silence feels heavier than noise when you lie awake, eyes open in the dark, wondering if heaven still remembers your name. Those nights are not wasted. They are the secret chapters of your becoming. You've prayed, waited, and sometimes whispered into the void, God, are you still here? But listen closely, the absence you feel is not abandonment, it is training. God hides not to punish, but to strengthen perception. The quiet is where faith matures. I once knew a woman named Sarah, another chosen one who lived in that silence. She lost almost everything in a single year. Her job, her relationship, her confidence. Yet she refused to curse the season. Every night, she wrote down one sentence of gratitude, even when her world was collapsing. A year later, she said something unforgettable. My waiting didn't break me, it built my hearing. That's what this part of your story is doing, refining your ability to hear God's whisper when the world goes quiet. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 30, verse 5. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The night isn't a sentence, it's a setup. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. When joy comes, it will not come gently. It will flood every dry space in you with the brightness of morning. Think of a seed buried underground. It's surrounded by darkness, pressure, and silence. But inside that soil, transformation is happening. The seed never doubts the sun. It simply waits for its turn to rise. You, too, are waiting not in vain, but in preparation. There's a certain beauty in how heaven writes through pain. Every unanswered prayer becomes a seed of empathy. Every delay becomes a lesson in timing. You begin to see that silence is not the absence of God, but the atmosphere where He rebuilds you from within. Picture this, a lighthouse standing alone on a cliff. Waves crashing violently below, No one hears its struggle, yet its light cuts through the darkest storm. That's you right now, steady, shining. Even when no one notices, you've carried burdens silently, prayed prayers no one else knew, and smiled through unseen battles. And still, you've remained faithful. That quiet endurance is the sound of heaven applauding. Sometimes, before the morning breaks, the night grows its darkest. That's the sign the dawn is near. The heaviness you've been feeling isn't punishment. It's the last push before breakthrough. Take heart. Chosen one. The God who seemed silent has been closer than your breath, guiding you through invisible paths. You are walking through a chapter that will one day make others believe again. If these words reach something deep within you, write "still standing" in the comments. Do it not as habit, but as prophecy, because the moment you declare it, heaven records your endurance. It means your faith is still alive, your story still unfolding, your morning already rising, and morning will come. It always does, for those who wait with hope. The same God who wrote light into existence is about to write light into your story. Each silence has its reason. God does not withhold answers to punish you, but to purify your perception. When everything is quiet, you learn to recognize His voice, not in thunder, but in stillness. It's training your heart to hear the sacred rhythm beneath ordinary noise. Waiting seasons test what you truly believe. When your prayers echo unanswered, the question becomes, will you still trust? Faith is not proven in miracles, but in the empty space before them. In that emptiness, heaven measures endurance and molds your strength into something unshakable. The dark nights that once terrified you are now becoming sacred classrooms. Pain is the teacher, hope is the textbook, and resilience is the graduation gift. When dawn comes, you realize the silence wasn't emptiness at all. It was God's voice teaching in another language. There's power in hidden growth. Seeds never shout while sprouting. They expand in silence. You may feel buried, but you're actually being rooted. Every unseen act of faith, every tear, every whisper of prayer becomes nourishment for what is about to bloom in public view. Learn to rest instead of rushing. Heaven doesn't move on panic, it moves on peace. The timing you call delay is often divine precision. God is preparing the stage, not just for your arrival, but for your recognition that others may see His glory through your story. When the morning finally breaks, you will look back and realize that silence was mercy. It protected you from premature exposure, from stepping out before you were ready. The waiting didn't weaken you, it crowned you with discernment, anchoring you in wisdom that no storm can steal. There are moments when heaven speaks not through sound, but through sequence, through the timing of things that seem ordinary, but are stitched together with divine intelligence. You begin to notice how people, opportunities, and closed doors all form patterns, like constellations pointing to something greater. That's when you realize heaven has been having a conversation about you long before you even knew it. You've wondered why some paths were blocked, why certain people faded from your life without explanation, why doors you prayed for stayed shut. But what if those denials were divine discussions? What if every delay was heaven's way of saying, we have something better in mind? The truth is, heaven doesn't operate on human logic. While you were asking, why me? Angels were whispering your name in the courts of light, preparing the next chapter of your assignment. What you mistook as silence was actually strategy. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, 2nd book, chapter 2, verse 9, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him." That means even your imagination can't grasp how intricately heaven has planned your life. Every unnoticed detail, every overlooked moment, has been accounted for. You've never been out of divine conversation, you've simply been unaware of it. There's a story I remember of a woman named Nyora. For years, she prayed for a single breakthrough, a job that would lift her from struggle into stability. But no matter how hard she tried, nothing worked. One day, in frustration, she cried, "God, why do you keep ignoring me?" That night, she dreamt of a large chessboard. Every time she tried to move her piece, a hand gently stopped her. A few squares later, she saw why a trap had been waiting there. When she woke, she realized the delays were protection, not neglect. 3 months later, the right door opened, one that aligned perfectly with her calling. That's how heaven works. It listens to your prayers, but it also listens to the future, and sometimes the future says, "Not yet." You are being positioned not only for provision, but for preservation. Think of the sky before a storm. Clouds gather, winds shift, and everything seems unsettled. But above that layer of turmoil, the sun still shines, unaffected. That's how divine planning looks from Earth's perspective. Chaotic below, calm and certain above. Heaven's conversations about you have always been full of love. They've discussed your fears, your failures, and your future victories. They've wept when you wept, and rejoiced when you chose to keep going. You are not a forgotten name. You are an active subject in the divine narrative. When you start to see life that way, disappointment becomes easier to bear. You begin to trust the no's as much as the yeses. You stop interpreting delay as rejection and start seeing it as choreography. Every pause is a repositioning, not punishment, but preparation for better alignment. There's another image, a painter working on a canvas too large to see up close. From where you stand, the brush strokes seem random, messy even, but when the artist steps back, a breathtaking image appears. That's your life. You're standing too close to the strokes to see the masterpiece forming. Sometimes, heaven withholds clarity to protect your faith. If you saw the entire map, you'd lose the wonder of trust. God doesn't just want obedience. He wants relationship, the kind that grows stronger when you choose to believe without full sight. The conversations in heaven about you aren't casual. They are purposeful, layered with destiny. Angels have been assigned, doors are being aligned, and timing is being orchestrated so that everything arrives when your spirit is ready to sustain it. One day, when you look back, you'll see it, the divine fingerprints across your journey. You'll realize that even the unanswered seasons were filled with answers in disguise. Every person who left, every moment that broke you, every prayer that seemed ignored was all part of heaven's hidden dialogue, a script designed to bring you closer, not further away. So breathe. The divine discussion hasn't stopped. It's just shifting chapters. You are still the topic of heaven's conversation, still part of a plan written in eternal ink. And when the timing aligns, what has been spoken in secret will manifest in the open. The unseen will become seen. and you'll finally understand what the silence was saying all along. When that moment comes, everything will make sense. Every closed door, every lonely prayer. You'll see that heaven never forgot you. It was simply preparing the perfect unveiling. Sometimes the light begins to break through slowly, not in flashes, not in sudden miracles, but in quiet revelations that make sense of the waiting. You begin to understand why some prayers needed time, why the pieces had to fall apart before they could fit together differently. This is the moment of unveiling, the sacred point where you finally see what God was doing behind the scenes. You start to notice how the closed doors protected your peace, how the delays shielded you from counterfeit blessings. The things that once made you question God are now the very things confirming His care. The tears you thought were wasted were watering the roots of something holy. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 3, "Then shall we know. If we follow on to know the Lord, His going forth is prepared as the morning, and He shall come unto us as the rain." Embo. It's happening just as promised. The morning of your life is dawning, and you can feel the rain of renewal washing away the weight of the past. God's faithfulness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just quietly fills every empty space until all that's left is peace. There's a story of a man named Jonah, not the prophet, just a man whose heart resembled one. He spent years working tirelessly, chasing every open door he could find. But nothing seemed to last. One day, exhausted, he sat beside a small river and whispered, "Lord, I have nothing left to give." Then, as if heaven had been waiting for that surrender, the wind picked up, scattering golden leaves across the water. He said later, "That was the moment I realized I never needed to chase. I only needed to stay." That's the unveiling. When you stop striving and start recognizing that every miracle has already been set in motion, waiting for your peace to make room for it. You've come far. Chosen one. You've endured what others couldn't. And through it all, your faith has not withered. You're not who you were at the beginning of this story. You've grown roots deep, unshakable, invisible but strong. And now heaven is beginning to reveal the fruit. Imagine a curtain slowly drawing back after a long night in the theater. The lights rise, and the scene you've been rehearsing for in the dark finally begins. That's your life right now, the unveiling. The stage is set. Heaven's audience leans forward, and the spotlight of divine purpose rests gently on you. Now, if these words touch your heart, let them travel further. Like a ripple that begins with one stone cast into still water, every small act you take keeps the current of light moving. Consider gently pressing like. It's how this light finds another heart. If a face or a name rises in your mind, share this message with them. You may be the messenger they prayed for. If you wish to walk with us through more of these divine moments, subscribe, not as a follower, but as a companion on the same road. And about giving, listen closely. This is not about payment nor purchase. It's about participation in what heaven is building. Think of it like this: when rain touches the earth, the ground doesn't owe the sky anything. It simply responds by blooming. So, if your spirit ever feels stirred to donate, not out of pressure, but from overflow, let it be like a candle lighting another candle. The flame you share never lessens your own, it only multiplies the light. If you can't give, your presence here already matters more than you know. Your listening, your belief, your time, These are sacred offerings, and if one day you do feel led to contribute, do it with joy, not duty. Do it because something inside whispers, I want to keep this fire burning. Each share is a door open to someone who's ready to believe again. Each subscription is a promise that the message of hope will keep reaching those who need it most. Every gift or donation, however small, is like pouring a drop of oil into the lamp of grace, so it can keep shining through the night. You're not just a listener, you're part of the movement, part of heaven's design to spread peace through words. And I pray that as you give, in whatever way your heart decides, blessings will find their way back to you 100-fold, not just in material things, but in clarity, peace, and divine favor. So as you step forward from this message, carry that awareness. You're walking beneath open skies now. The veil is lifting, the light is spreading, and what once was hidden is now beginning to bloom in front of you. May your steps be steady, may your joy be full, and may your generosity, whether in kindness, time, or giving, become the proof that love still reigns in this world. The seasons of refining are never easy. They are the hidden classrooms of heaven, quiet places where you are stripped of what was temporary so that only what is eternal remains. Refining doesn't destroy you, it defines you. It turns the fragile into the faithful, the uncertain into the unbreakable. You have walked through such seasons, haven't you? Times when it felt as though the fire would consume you, when every prayer seemed unanswered, every door remained closed, and every part of you longed for relief. Yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still believing. That alone is proof that grace did not abandon you in the flame. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9, "And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them." Now, you see, the fire was never a punishment, it was preparation. The pressure you felt was not meant to break you, but to reveal you. In God's forge, gold is not created. It is revealed by removing impurities that disguise its shine. You are that gold, being purified until your reflection mirrors His light. There's a story of a man named Elias who learned this truth in silence. He once prayed, "Lord, take away my pain." But heaven answered differently. His business failed, friends left, and his health faltered. He thought God had turned away. But one night, while reading, he came across an old silversmith's note that said, "The refiner knows the metal is ready when he can see his face in it." At that moment, Elias wept, not from despair, but from understanding God wasn't punishing him. He was purifying him until his reflection could be seen. You, too, have been in that refining fire. The losses you endured weren't in vain. Every betrayal burned away, dependence on human approval. Every delay purified your patience. Every unanswered prayer strengthened your discernment. Think of the refining fire as heaven's sculpting hand. A sculptor doesn't strike the marble to destroy it. He strikes it to release the beauty hidden within. The hammer's rhythm may feel violent, but each strike is purposeful. You've been under divine craftsmanship, shaped by pain, refined by pressure, perfected by love. And now, something has changed. You feel it, don't you? The flames are cooling, the smoke is clearing, and your heart is lighter. You're beginning to see what God saw all along, the version of you that could survive the impossible. When you look back, you'll notice the miracles disguised as losses. The job that didn't work out made space for the calling that did. The relationship that ended cleared room for peace to return. The delay that frustrated you became the doorway to timing you couldn't have planned yourself. Refining seasons don't last forever. They end when the lesson takes root. And yours, chosen one, is taking root deeply. You've learned to worship even when weary, to trust even when trembling, and to keep your flame alive in the storm. The peace you carry now is different, not the fragile kind that depends on comfort, but the kind that survives chaos. That peace is your proof that you've been through fire and emerged pure. You've been prepared for influence, not through applause, but through endurance. So now, pause for a moment. Place your hand over your heart. Feel that steady rhythm. That's the sound of gold, resilient, refined, radiant. That's the sound of someone who didn't give up when everything said to. If this word resonates deep in your spirit, write 777 inches, the comments. The number 7 has always represented divine completion, and 777 means perfect fulfillment. Heaven's seal of restoration. When you type it, you are declaring, my refining is complete. I am walking in divine wholeness. It's not superstition. It's a symbol of surrender, a sign that you recognize your process had purpose. You've come out not burned, but brightened. The fire didn't end you, it revealed you. And now, the world will see what heaven already knows. You are ready, refined, and radiant for the next chapter. And as you rise from the ashes of what tried to break you, you'll realize that the fire wasn't your downfall, it was your doorway. Every scar glows now, not as evidence of pain, but as proof of transformation. You've become living gold, untarnished and unafraid. Carry that awareness into your tomorrow. The storms ahead may roar, but the refined do not fear the wind, they shine through it. You've passed through the fire, and now heaven calls you unstoppable. There comes a point in every chosen one's journey when running no longer feels possible, not because the path becomes easy, but because the call becomes undeniable. You can feel it deep inside, that gentle but relentless pull, like a river drawing you back toward its source. No matter how far you wander, something sacred keeps calling your name. You've felt it in dreams, in unexpected conversations, even in moments of ordinary stillness when your soul stirs with quiet recognition. You've tried to silence it, to bury it beneath busyness or fear, but purpose never stays buried for long. It keeps resurrecting, gently but persistently, until you finally stop resisting. This is the calling you've tried to run from, the divine appointment that refuses to let you go. The Word of God declares in the book of Jonah, chapter 1, verse 3, "But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa." End of section. You know the story. Jonah ran from his calling, thinking distance could silence destiny. Yet even in his rebellion, heaven pursued him. The storm that followed wasn't punishment, it was persuasion, a divine redirection steering him back to purpose. You, too, have known those storms. The ones that rise when you try to hide from your gift, the moments when everything falls apart, not because God has abandoned you, but because He's guiding you home. Sometimes the discomfort isn't a sign of failure, it's evidence of divine pursuit. You've been called for something greater than comfort. The restlessness you feel isn't emptiness, it's potential begging to be released. You were designed to move in rhythm with heaven's heartbeat, to carry light into places that forgot what light feels like. Every time you've tried to shrink, life has become smaller, duller, emptier, because your spirit was never made for confinement. There's a story about a young teacher named Mara who always dreamed of writing songs that spoke healing into others. But she told herself, it's too late. Too many people are already doing it. So she buried her dream beneath duty and noise. Then, one night, while singing softly to herself in an empty classroom, a janitor passing by stopped and said, I don't know who you are, but I needed that. That small sentence changed everything. Mara realized she wasn't called to reach millions, she was called to reach whoever heard her song. Destiny doesn't measure size, it measures obedience. Maybe you've been hiding like Jonah, convincing yourself that what you carry isn't needed. But the truth is, heaven doesn't call the most qualified, it qualifies the most willing. And once you've heard that whisper of destiny, you can't unknow it. It becomes a part of your very heartbeat. Running only delays peace. The call won't leave because it's not external, it's woven into who you are. You can't outrun what's in your DNA. You were born with spiritual fingerprints that match an assignment no one else can complete. You may think you've missed your moment, but God's timing is redemptive. The detours you've taken aren't disqualifications, they're rehearsals. Every season of delay has been preparing you for the moment when you finally say yes, when that yes leaves your lips, even quietly. The entire atmosphere of your life begins to shift. The moment you stop resisting, clarity returns. Fear loses its hold. The same storms that once terrified you begin to make sense. You start to understand that every wave was simply pushing you toward obedience. The winds that once frightened you become the winds that carry you forward. Obedience doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like small, humble beginnings showing up when no one is watching. Building quietly, praying faithfully, doing what you were told, even when no one applauds. But heaven watches. Heaven records every act of surrender. The calling you've tried to escape has never been a burden, it's been your anchor. That's why you've never truly been able to walk away. It's not chasing you to punish you, it's chasing you to free you. The sooner you surrender, the sooner peace returns. So, stop running. Rest your feet. Let the current of destiny carry you again. You don't have to force the future, you only have to follow it. Every step toward obedience is a step toward joy. Because your calling is not a task, it's the place where your soul breathes again. And as you walk back into that purpose, you'll notice something profound. The very thing you feared would destroy you becomes the thing that defines you. The same calling that once felt heavy now feels holy. Because when you finally stop running, you don't lose yourself. You find who you were always meant to be. There are moments in life when the unseen becomes more real than the visible, when you begin to sense that you are not walking alone. You may not see them, but heaven's army has been stationed around you, working quietly in the background, intercepting dangers you never even knew existed. These are the angels on assignment, sent not as decoration, but as divine protection for those marked by purpose. You've made it through nights that should have broken you, through accidents that should have ended differently, through heartbreaks that should have hardened your heart. And yet, you're still here. That's not coincidence. That's evidence. Somewhere between the unseen and the seen, angels have been guarding the edges of your story. According to what is revealed in the book of Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11, "For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways." I'll quote, that promise is not poetic, it's practical. It means you've been covered even when unaware. The car that didn't hit you, the phone call that came just in time, the sense to pause before taking a step, those weren't random moments. They were angelic interventions woven seamlessly into your ordinary life. A man named Raphael once shared his experience with me. He was driving late one night, exhausted and distracted. Just as his eyes began to close, he heard a clear voice whisper, "Stop." He braked instinctively. Seconds before, a truck ran a red light at full speed. No one was in the car with him, yet someone was. He said afterward, "It was calm, not frightening, just sure, like I was, never really alone." End of. You've had those moments too, the sense that something unseen nudged you, pulled you, or surrounded you in peace when you should have been afraid. Angels don't always arrive with trumpets or wings. Sometimes they appear as an inner stillness, a protective delay, or a stranger's kind word that changes everything. In the divine order, angels are not distant myths. They are heaven's response team. Some are messengers who carry hope into the hearts of the weary. Others are guardians who stand at the thresholds of your destiny, fighting battles your eyes can't perceive. You've never been defenseless. You've simply been unaware of how fiercely protected you are. Think of it this way. When a general sends soldiers to guard a treasure, he doesn't announce their presence to the world. He positions them strategically. That's what heaven has done for you. Every season of loneliness was never isolation. It was security. Every closed path you mourned was likely a shield drawn across a trap you didn't see. Even in your weakest moments, you were never unguarded. When your prayers were too tired to form words, angels carried the groans of your heart upward. When darkness tried to whisper that you were forgotten, a divine presence stood near, whispering, "You're still covered." There is a deep comfort in knowing that your life is not only watched over, but also fought for. Every time the enemy planned confusion, an unseen barrier was raised. Every time despair tried to take hold, reinforcements were dispatched. You have not survived by luck. You have endured by covenant. Sometimes, angels even arrive disguised as people. The stranger who helped you when your car broke down, the friend who texted just when you were ready to give up, the nurse who stayed an extra 5 minutes to check your pulse. Heaven borrows human hands when it needs to remind us that we're loved. You are surrounded not by chance, but by design. The spiritual realm is alive with motion on your behalf. Even now, as you read this, unseen forces are shifting things in your favor, clearing paths, closing wrong doors, opening right ones. You may feel small, but heaven sees you as a fortress worth protecting. The presence that walks beside you is not fragile, it is fierce. Angels move at the sound of divine instruction, and their mission is clear: to keep you aligned with purpose until every promise written for you is fulfilled. So, walk today with quiet confidence. The air around you carries witnesses of glory. You are never outnumbered, never uncovered, never forsaken. And when life feels too heavy, remember this: What surrounds you in the unseen is greater than what opposes you in the visible. There's no need to search for proof. You are the proof still alive, still chosen, still shielded by grace that works even when you sleep. Even now, unseen wings move around you, stirring the air with quiet assurance. You are never alone. Every heartbeat is accompanied by heaven's protection, guiding you forward in perfect safety and divine timing. There comes a sacred moment when surrender becomes the sound. Heaven waits for not the sound of defeat, but of trust. You've fought for so long to hold everything together, to understand every delay, to control what was never yours to command. And yet, here you are, tired but open, weary but willing. That's where the miracle begins. When you finally release control, the atmosphere shifts. The same weight that once pressed against your chest begins to lift. Slowly, like mist after rain. The peace that follows isn't loud, it's soft, but it's real. A peace that no human hand could manufacture. It's the sound of surrender, the melody of letting go. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 15. In quietness and trust is your strength. This is what heaven has been teaching you all along, that strength is not in striving, but in stillness. It is not in doing more, but in trusting deeper. Every time you let go, you return to the rhythm of grace. There's a story about a man named Josias who used to pray every night, "Lord, please fix this." But one evening, he heard a whisper deep inside, "What if I'm fixing you first?" That sentence undid him. He realized that sometimes God doesn't change the storm because the storm is changing you. That's the essence of surrender, the holy exchange of striving for peace. You stop demanding explanations and start finding meaning in presence. You begin to rest, not because everything makes sense, but because you finally trust the one who does. Think of surrender like a bird opening its wings to the wind. The bird doesn't create the wind, it simply learns to glide with it. The higher it goes, the less effort it takes. That's what happens when you surrender. You stop flapping in exhaustion and start soaring in grace. Many fear surrender because they think it means weakness. But surrender is not collapsing, it's aligning. It's placing your plans into hands that see farther than your eyes ever could. When you release control, you're not losing power, you're exchanging temporary control for eternal stability. You've tried it your way long enough. You've reasoned, fought, worried, and wrestled. And maybe it's time now to exhale, to admit that you don't have to carry everything anymore. That's not failure, that's freedom. Look back for a moment. Can you see the pattern? Every time you let go, something better arrived. Every time you trusted instead of panicked, peace followed. Every time you surrendered what you thought you needed, heaven surprised you with what you truly desired. That pattern is not coincidence. It's proof. Proof that the hands you release things into are capable, gentle, and unfailing. This is the beauty of surrender. It invites divine orchestration. When you loosen your grip, heaven tightens its hold. When you stop striving, alignment begins. When you whisper, "I can't," grace replies, "You never had to." End of. Even now, something inside you knows that it's time. Time to stop running in circles of worry. Time to breathe again. Time to trust that what's meant for you will not require endless striving to keep. The peace you crave is not found in control, it's found in release. If this message resonates in your spirit, write "Peace, take over" in the comments, not as a phrase, but as a prayer. It's an invitation, a way of saying, I no longer want to fight the flow of grace. I welcome peace to take the lead. When you type it, you're declaring that you're done carrying burdens that were never meant for your shoulders. You're handing the pen back to God and saying, write the rest of this story with your wisdom, not my worry. And as those words settle in your heart, something will shift. The storm will not disappear instantly, but the noise inside you will quiet, because peace has entered, and peace never leaves empty-handed. You don't lose when you let go, you rise. Peace is not a reward for perfection, it's the result of surrender. The moment you stop demanding answers, you make space for miracles to unfold in silence. That stillness becomes your strength, the quiet where divine wisdom finally has room to speak. You don't have to force what's already yours. Let peace take its rightful place, not as a visitor, but as a resident within you. This is the calm that carries you through chaos, unbothered, unwavering. When the next storm comes, remember this moment. Remember the freedom that followed your release. Peace isn't fragile, it's fierce. It protects, it guides, it heals. And one day, when you look back, you'll whisper in gratitude not for what you lost, but for what surrender helped you find. There comes a time when the air around you feels different, lighter, calmer, more alive. You can't explain it, but you sense something shifting. The heaviness that once sat on your chest begins to lift, and peace flows like morning sunlight through open windows. That's when you realize the atmosphere has changed, not because the world got easier, but because you did. You have entered a new rhythm, the rhythm of grace. This is what happens when the spiritual climate of your life shifts. You've been through storms, silence, and surrender. And now heaven responds. Things that used to exhaust you no longer hold power. Where anxiety once lived, clarity begins to bloom. Where confusion once whispered, purpose now speaks. As the apostle wrote in his letter to the Romans, chapter 15, verse 13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. This is your moment of abounding, not just surviving, but overflowing. What once felt like drought is turning into rainfall. You are standing under open skies now, and heaven is pouring new favor into places you thought were barren. A woman named Alina once told me that peace felt impossible for her. She had spent years holding everything together, family, work, reputation, until she realized her strength wasn't meant to be the foundation. She said, "When I finally stopped fighting for control, I felt like a locked room that someone opened a window in." That's what happens when peace enters. The stale air of fear leaves, and the light finally breathes again. Now, as peace flows through you, you begin to sense new opportunities forming, not rushed, not forced, but divinely timed. The same spirit that steadied you in the storm now propels you into purpose. And here's the beauty of this new season. It's not just about you. It's about how your peace ripples outward. Every calm decision, every kind word, every act of faith becomes a seed that multiplies. You are becoming the atmosphere changer, the one who walks into a room and light follows. That's why these messages exist, not merely as words, but as instruments of peace, designed to reach hearts that are still searching for light. You've felt that, haven't you? That warmth that comes when something deep within says, "This was meant for me." Oh, if this message touches your spirit, I ask only one thing: let the ripple continue. Press like if something in your heart resonated, not as a reflex, but as recognition, a way of saying, "This word found me at the right time." Oh, share this message if you feel someone you love needs to breathe again. You never know how far one act of sharing can travel, like a lantern passed from hand to hand in a dark valley. And if you've been walking with us on this journey, subscribe not to follow a page, but to stay connected to a flow that keeps faith alive. Now, let me speak gently about giving, not as obligation, but as a beautiful exchange of love. Think of a river. It stays alive because water both flows in and flows out. When you give, whether prayer, time, words, or donation, you're keeping the river moving. If you ever feel moved to donate, do it as a reflection of gratitude, not guilt. Giving doesn't buy blessings. It joins you to the current of grace already flowing. Each contribution, big or small, becomes like a drop of oil poured into a lamp, keeping the flame alive through the night. If you can't give, your presence here already matters deeply. Your listening heart, your quiet agreement, your willingness to grow, these are priceless offerings. This space has never been built on numbers, it's been built on souls. Souls like yours who are ready to rise, ready to be light, ready to help others breathe again. The shift you feel now, that calm warmth settling in your chest, that's heaven confirming you are seen, you are chosen, and you are standing in divine alignment. The winds that once tore against you are now at your back. So as this peace deepens within you, let gratitude overflow. Gratitude is how the soul breathes when it realizes it's safe again. Every gesture of kindness, every word of faith, every gift of love is part of the invisible kingdom. God is building through ordinary people who dare to believe. So breathe easy now. You've survived the storm, surrendered the weight, and stepped into peace. You are part of a movement of quiet light, and that light only grows when it's shared. May your life feel lighter. May your peace be contagious. And may every act of generosity, whether in words, time, or giving, return to you multiplied, because that's how heaven works. It never forgets a heart that gives from love. There is a sacred record in heaven, not of your failures, but of your faithfulness. Every prayer whispered in pain, every act of kindness no one saw, every quiet moment you chose to believe. Instead of breaking, it's all written. Heaven keeps detailed accounts of your endurance, not your perfection. You may have thought no one noticed your effort. You may have assumed your tears were wasted. But in heaven's book, nothing is ever forgotten. Each small act of obedience, every time you forgave, every moment you chose compassion instead of anger, they've been preserved in eternal ink. As revealed in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. That verse isn't abstract. It's a promise. You've been seen not by crowds or applause, but by the one who measures hearts instead of outcomes. There are records in heaven that bear your name. filled with stories of courage you didn't even realize were heroic. I once met an elderly man named Thomas, who spent decades working quietly in a hospital as a janitor. He wasn't rich, well known, or publicly praised, but every morning, before the halls filled with doctors and patients, he would pray over every room he cleaned. He asked that each space would hold peace and healing. When he retired, the staff said, those rooms always felt lighter when he was there. Thomas smiled and said softly, that's because I wasn't just mopping floors. I was sowing peace. No, heaven records moments like that, unseen faithfulness that changes the air around it. You might not be recognized by people, but eternity has been shaped by your obedience. Think about that. Every hidden sacrifice, every quiet yes when no one was looking, every choice to keep loving when you had every reason to walk away, it's been documented, not to burden you with pressure, but to remind you that your life carries weight far beyond what you see. Sometimes, the delay you feel on earth is not neglect, it's timing. Heaven writes everything perfectly. Even if you can't yet read the pages, you think the ink has dried, but heaven is still writing. There are blessings stored under your name, scheduled for the moment you are ready to hold them. It's like an orchard that's been planted in secret. The soil has been tended, the roots have deepened, and now the fruit is almost visible. But you can't rush. Ripening, the sweetness only comes when the season is right. In the same way, your reward is ripening. What you've sown in faith will return, pressed and multiplied. There's a line in Scripture that says, your prayers rise like incense before God. That means your faith has fragrance. It fills the throne room with memory. Even when you've forgotten some of your own prayers, heaven hasn't. The echoes of your cries still vibrate in eternity, still moving things you cannot see. Think of the stars for a moment. The light we see tonight may have left its source thousands of years ago, yet it reaches us perfectly on time. That's what happens with your faithfulness. Light released long ago will arrive when you need it most. The impact of your trust hasn't even finished traveling through time yet. And when the books are opened, not in fear, but in revelation, you'll see how carefully your story was recorded. You'll recognize moments you thought were ordinary, but were actually sacred. Every time you gave, forgave, waited, prayed, trusted, or comforted someone, heaven took note. You'll realize that the small things were the big things all along, that choosing kindness over bitterness rewrote destinies, that one prayer, whispered in tears, stopped something dark from spreading further. You have no idea how many storms were silenced because you refused to quit. So don't think for a moment that you've gone unnoticed. You are known in heaven's courts not for grandeur, but for grace, not for being flawless, but for being faithful. And soon, the record will speak. What has been written will manifest. The quiet seeds of obedience you planted in secret will bloom loudly, and the fragrance of your faith will fill every corner of your life. When that moment arrives, you'll understand why heaven told you to wait. Every unseen act, every quiet prayer will rise like dawn after a long night, undeniable, radiant, perfectly timed. And you'll finally see that faith was never forgotten. It was simply maturing underground, waiting for the day it would bloom in full light. There are seasons when life suddenly turns, when everything that once felt stuck begins to move again. You can sense it in your spirit before it shows in your circumstances. It's that quiet knowing that something is about to shift, not randomly, but prophetically. Heaven has declared a turnaround, and you can feel the air changing. You've been through refining, surrender, and silence. You've walked through valleys that felt endless, but endurance has done its work. Now the tide is turning. The same hands that allowed the breaking are now preparing the blessing. The divine clock has struck a new hour, the hour of reversal, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verse 52. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. Oh, this is how heaven works. The proud are humbled, and the bowed down are lifted. What seemed permanent begins to dissolve. What seemed impossible begins to open. The God who once whispered, "Wait," is now saying, "Watch." The delay has ended. The divine turnaround has begun. I once met a woman named Celine who spent years praying for restoration. She had lost nearly everything: her business, her home, her hope. Yet, she never stopped believing. One evening, after another long day of disappointment, she sat by her window and said aloud, "Lord, I'm still here." That same week, she received a call from an old client who wanted to invest in a new project, the exact idea she had nearly given up on. Within months, everything began to rebuild. Celine said something I'll never forget. When God turns things, He doesn't just fix what's broken, He rewrites the whole story. Now, that's what a divine turnaround looks like. It's not repair, it's renewal. It's not returning to what was, but being lifted into what was always meant to be. Think of a river flowing downstream for years, carving its path in one direction. Then, without warning, the source shifts, and the water begins to move the other way. That's how grace moves when heaven says, "Now." It reverses what the world thought was final. You've cried prayers that felt like they hit a ceiling, but heaven heard everyone. You've been faithful in silence, and now those seeds of faith are breaking through the soil. Where there was resistance, there will be release. Where there was loss, there will be laughter again. The turnaround is not only external, it's internal. God is not just changing situations, He's changing you. The bitterness that tried to take root is being replaced with wisdom. The exhaustion that weighed you down is turning into strength. What once wounded you now becomes a well drawing water for others to drink from. There's a divine order to restoration. Heaven never restores you to the same level you lost. It always multiplies. When Job was restored, he didn't return to what he had, he received double. When the prodigal son came home, he didn't return as a servant, he was clothed in honor. Heaven doesn't simply rewind your story, it redefines it. Sometimes the turnaround comes in ways that don't look like victory at first. A relationship ends, and suddenly your peace returns. A door closes, and days later, the right one opens. What felt like rejection was redirection all along. That's how God moves gently, precisely, and always on time. You might not see the full picture yet, but the shift has already begun. Every delay was strategic. Every detour was necessary. You are being led into alignment so that when the door opens, you walk through, ready, not desperate. You may ask, how will I know when my turnaround comes? You'll feel it first. You'll wake up lighter, calmer, clearer. The fear that used to grip you will seem smaller. The same battles that once drained you will no longer intimidate you. That's how you know your spirit will move before your feet do. If this word stirs something deep inside you, write 888 inches, the comments. 8 is the number of new beginnings, and 888 means a complete cycle of endings turning into beginnings. When you type it, you're not chasing luck, you're declaring alignment. You're saying, I receive the new chapter heaven has written for me. Let this be your declaration of faith, that you will no longer mourn old doors when new ones are opening, that you will no longer fear change when God Himself is the author of it, that you will no longer settle for survival when you were born to rise. Your turnaround has begun. The waters are shifting. The old patterns are breaking. The impossible is yielding to grace. And as heaven moves, you will stand amazed, not because you forced it, but because you finally let God write what only He could finish. There comes a time when your story stops being just a testimony you tell. It becomes the message itself. Every scar, every season of pain, every sleepless night that once felt meaningless begins to take on purpose. You start to realize that your life isn't just about survival, it's about revelation. You've become the message heaven has been trying to send. When people look at you, they no longer just see what happened to you, they see what God can do through you. You become walking evidence that redemption is real. Your story becomes a living letter, written not with ink, but with endurance, with hope, and with light that refuses to dim. As written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 3, you are a letter from Christ, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. No, that's the truth of who you've become, a living word. Breathing proof that pain can become purpose and darkness can give birth to dawn. For years, you may have asked why your journey had to be so heavy, why your heart had to break so many times. But the very cracks that almost destroyed you became the spaces where light now shines through. Without those cracks, you would never have reflected grace the way you do now. I remember a man named Raphael, not the one who saw angels, but another whose story carried fire. He had battled addiction, lost his family, and nearly lost himself. For years, shame chained his voice. But when he finally turned back to God, his healing became contagious. He didn't preach from perfection, he preached from scars. People listened because they recognized their pain in his words, but they also saw their hope in his redemption. That's what happens when you become the message. Your wounds stop whispering weakness, they start declaring wisdom. Your past stops being a prison and becomes a platform. You stop trying to hide your brokenness because it's the very language others understand. You might not have realized it yet, but your story is preaching even in silence. The way you keep showing up after disappointment, the way you still love after betrayal, the way you smile even when life feels uncertain, that's ministry. Not everyone needs a sermon. Sometimes they just need to see you still standing. Think of a candle. It doesn't need words to speak light, it just burns. The flame itself testifies that darkness never wins. That's you now. You don't need to force your influence. It's already flowing from your resilience. The light you carry has learned to shine quietly but powerfully. Sometimes, God allows your story to unfold slowly so that others watching can learn through your endurance. You've been carrying wisdom that books can't teach, lessons written through tears, through patience, through long nights where faith was your only anchor. That kind of truth can't be imitated. It has to be lived. And maybe that's why your journey took so long. Because what you carry isn't for you alone. There are people attached to your healing souls that will find hope because you refuse to give up. The freedom you fought for will set others free. When they ask, "How did you survive?" you won't point to your strength. You'll point to grace. You'll say, "I didn't climb out. I was lifted." And that testimony will become their ladder out of their own darkness. There's a sacred exchange that happens when you embrace your story instead of running from it. Shame loses its power. Fear loses its voice. And what remains is beauty, not the polished kind, but the raw, honest kind that glows from within. You've become the proof that God doesn't just fix people, He transforms them into instruments of healing. Every chapter of your life, even the ones you wish you could erase, has been redeemed into purpose. The pain didn't end you, it equipped you. So now, wherever you go, you carry more than a story, you carry a sound. The sound of hope breaking through despair, the sound of forgiveness louder than guilt, the sound of someone who has walked through fire and discovered that even flames can become holy when God walks beside you. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that you were never just living a story, you were writing one that heaven intended to echo through generations. Your endurance will become someone's courage. Your peace will become someone's turning point. You have become the message, not because you tried to be perfect, but because you allowed grace to make meaning out of every imperfect moment. And that's what heaven wanted all along, not a flawless vessel, but a faithful one. Joy doesn't always arrive with laughter. Sometimes it enters quietly through a sigh of relief, through tears that finally fall without pain. It doesn't always announce itself with noise. It often tiptoes in softly, taking the place where sorrow used to sit. That's how joy comes for the chosen ones, not as a burst, but as a gentle unfolding. You've spent so many seasons waiting for joy, haven't you? Thinking it would come once everything made sense. Once life stopped hurting. Once the prayers were answered. But the truth is, joy doesn't wait for perfection. It grows in the middle of imperfection. It's not the absence of pain, it's the presence of purpose within it. As the psalmist wrote in the book of Psalms, chapter 30, verse 11, "You have turned my mourning into dancing. You have removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy." That's not just poetry, it's prophecy. Joy is the divine exchange for those who have endured darkness. It is the robe heaven wraps around those who didn't let bitterness win. You have been through loss, heartbreak, and disappointment, yet joy still found you. That's not coincidence, that's covenant. Joy is not shallow happiness that fades when trouble returns. It's a deep-rooted calm that stays even when the storm doesn't stop. It's the ability to smile while tears still glisten because you know that pain isn't the final chapter. There's a story about a teacher named Leora who lost her husband early in life. For years, she taught children to read and write, but her own heart felt empty. One day, a student handed her a note that said, "You make hard days feel less hard." She said that was the day she began to laugh again, not because everything was fixed, but because she realized her life was still useful. That's what joy does it. Redeems meaning from ashes. Joy is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, resilience. It's the steady beat of hope that refuses to die, even when circumstances scream otherwise. It's when you wake up one morning and realize your heart doesn't ache the same way anymore. Something has healed. You see, joy doesn't visit the proud or the perfect. It visits the broken who stayed open. It comes to those who still believe that light will return, even after long nights. Joy doesn't need ideal conditions. It grows best in soil watered by tears. Imagine a garden after a storm. The ground is soaked. The sky still grey. But beneath the surface, seeds are beginning to swell with new life. That's your heart right now, full of quiet growth. You might not see the color yet, but heaven does. The roots of joy are already reaching deep. Joy also changes how you see everything else. The same memories that once made you ache begin to make you grateful. You start to realize that even pain was part of your preparation, that every loss made space for something sacred. It's like watching the sunrise after a long night. The dark didn't disappear, it simply yielded. The light was stronger all along. That's joy, the light that outlasts darkness. You've waited long for this. And now, heaven is clothing you in joy, like a garment tailored specifically for you. It fits perfectly because it was woven from everything you've survived. This joy won't be fragile. It won't depend on approval or circumstance. It will come from knowing who you are and whose you are. It will flow from the realization that no matter what happens, you are still chosen, still covered, still deeply loved. And perhaps most beautifully, your joy will become contagious. People will feel lighter around you, not because you hide your pain, but because you carry peace through it. Your laughter will sound different, not hollow, but healed. Your eyes will shine with that rare glow only found in those who've seen sorrow and still believe in beauty. Joy is your crown, now not a symbol of victory over others, but victory over despair. You earned it not by winning, but by refusing to give up. So when you wake tomorrow, let your first thought be gratitude. You've endured the shadows and found the sunrise. You've walked through grief and discovered grace. You've danced with tears still drying on your face, and heaven calls that dance holy. This is your joy season. Not loud, not fleeting, but steady and sacred. It's here to stay. And as you carry this joy forward, remember, it isn't borrowed, it's built. It lives in you now, unshakable and divine. A constant reminder that even after the darkest nights, light always finds its way home. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes, it moves quietly through the soul of one who has been broken and rebuilt by grace. You've become stronger, not because you avoided pain, but because you learned to rise inside it. Heaven calls that kind of strength, holy strength refined by surrender, endurance, and love. This is what it means to carry the warrior's blessing. You're not fighting to prove anything anymore. You've already overcome more than most could imagine. Every scar is now a seal, evidence that you've survived the fire and learned to walk through it with peace. The Word of God declares in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 5, "The mountains quake before him, and the hills melt away. The earth trembles at his presence. The world, and all who live in it." That verse doesn't describe fear, it reveals perspective. The same power that makes mountains tremble stands beside you. The same presence that shakes the earth steadies your spirit. You are not fragile. You are fortified by the one who commands creation itself. There's a story of a woman named Salome who once described her strength like this: "It wasn't that I stopped falling. It was that I learned to rise faster." softer, and with more wisdom each time. Her life became proof that a true warrior doesn't avoid the valley, they learn how to sing in it. You've done the same. Every trial has shaped you into someone unshakable. You no longer react from fear, you respond from faith. The weight you once cursed has become the armor that protects you now. This new strength you walk in is sacred. It's not the kind that shouts, it's the kind that steadies. You've become the quiet force that others draw courage from without realizing it. Your presence alone calms chaos. That's what happens when heaven crowns a warrior. And maybe, as you read these words, you can feel that crown settling on your spirit, not heavy, but radiant. It's invisible to the world, yet undeniable to heaven. You are walking proof that endurance always leads to empowerment. Now, if this message speaks to something inside you, I offer you an invitation, not obligation. If this word found you at the right time, let your heart breathe, a small act of acknowledgement. Press like, not as routine, but as resonance, a way of saying, yes, this truth lives in me too. Enter. If a face or a name rises in your mind, share this message. Let it travel like a quiet letter carried by the wind, finding whoever needs to remember they're not alone. If you've been journeying with us through these messages, subscribe, not as a follower, but as a friend who walks beside the same firelight. Each new word you receive will be another spark, reminding you that you are seen, strengthened, and still growing. And if these words stirred something deep within you, write "still standing" in the comments. It's not performance, it's prophecy. A simple declaration that the storms did not swallow you, they sculpted you. When you write it, you're marking your survival in heaven's record, turning endurance into testimony. Now, about giving, hear this gently. Giving is not a request, it's an echo. When you give, you are echoing gratitude. You're adding your flame to a fire already lit, helping it travel farther, reach deeper, and warm someone else's night. If your heart ever feels stirred to donate, do it as a whisper of thanks, not as payment. Give as rivers give water freely, because flow is their nature. Every seed you plant becomes part of a forest of faith that will outlive you. And if now is not your time to give, let peace cover that thought. Your presence here is already a contribution. Listening with open eyes, breathing slower, believing. Again, these are offerings, heaven treasures. Each act, whether you like, share, comment, subscribe, or give, is not about numbers, it's about nourishment. It's how love circulates. It's how light travels from one heart to another without losing its glow. Because that's what warriors do. They don't hoard the fire. They pass it on. You are one of those warriors now. Strong, gentle, faithful, a carrier of light and love. Your story has become both armor and anthem, the melody of someone who fought long and still chose tenderness over bitterness. And heaven smiles on that kind of strength, always. And when you walk onward from here, you'll notice the ground beneath you feels different, steadier, lighter, sacred. Because those who've faced storms no longer fear rain, they've learned to dance beneath it. Your strength now carries fragrance not of battle, but of peace after victory. You are the storm's survivor and heaven's proof. There are moments in every chosen journey when silence returns not as absence, but as invitation. After the battle, after the breakthrough, comes the stillness. It's not emptiness, it's restoration. This is the season when God doesn't demand your movement, only your awareness. You've proven your endurance. Now you are called to rest in the revelation. You no longer need to fight for validation or chase signs of progress. What's meant for you is already aligning, quietly, precisely, perfectly. This is the holy pause before the next unfolding, the deep breath of heaven between one miracle and the next. As spoken in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 4, "Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord, and work, for I am with you." That verse is not a command to strive, it's a reassurance. It reminds you that even in the stillness, God's presence remains your companion. Work here doesn't mean endless doing, it means remaining faithful while peace works on your behalf. You're not idle, you're being rebuilt from the inside out. Rest doesn't mean nothing is happening. In truth, rest is one of God's most powerful movements. When He rested on the seventh day, creation didn't stop being alive, it began to breathe. You're in that same divine rhythm now. Heaven is teaching you the sacred art of stillness, doing nothing while everything shifts in your favor. I once spoke to a man named Elias who said, "For years I prayed for movement, but when I finally sat still, that's when everything started changing." That's how divine rest works. It's not the end of activity. It's the beginning of awareness. You start to notice small signs of grace you used to overlook the sunrise through your window, the sound of laughter, the ease returning to your breath. Those aren't random. They're confirmations that peace has taken root. In this quiet season, heaven often speaks in subtler ways, not through thunder, but through the rhythm of ordinary life. The way someone smiles at you, the sudden calm in a busy day, the unexpected memory that reminds you how far you've come. These are not coincidences, they are echoes of divine comfort. You may feel like nothing grand is happening right now, but this is actually where deep transformation takes place. Roots are growing beneath the soil, foundations are strengthening out of sight. Heaven hides its greatest work in what looks like stillness, so that when the fruit appears, no one can say it was human effort alone. This still season is not wasted time, it's sacred construction. God is aligning resources, restoring relationships, and preparing opportunities, all while you're learning to rest instead of rush. Think of the ocean. The waves crash, roar, and retreat, but beneath the surface, an entire world thrives in quiet. That's your life now. Beneath the calm, there's movement. Beneath the peace, there's preparation. You've already fought enough battles to prove your faith. Now heaven is proving its faithfulness to you. Every promise that felt delayed is maturing in silence. You don't have to chase what's already been spoken over your life. You only have to stay aligned, steady, soft, ready. The world may tell you that rest is weakness, but in the kingdom, rest is warfare. It declares that you trust the outcome so fully you no longer need to control it. The enemy can't manipulate a resting heart. A heart at peace is a fortress. No chaos can penetrate. You're entering that sacred peace now, not temporary calm. But deep restoration. The kind that doesn't just soothe you, it rewires you. Your thoughts are slowing. Your spirit is clearing. You're rediscovering how to exist without fear dictating your pace. In this stillness, You may find yourself feeling closer to God than ever before, not through dramatic moments, but through quiet companionship. You begin to sense that He's not far above, but right beside you, breathing in rhythm with your rest, guiding every exhale. You'll look around soon and realize how much has changed while you were simply being still. Doors you didn't knock on will open. What was once heavy will feel light again. This is the reward of those who trust the pause. The same hands that held you through storms are now wrapping you in peace. The same voice that called you into battle now calls you into quiet. This isn't the end of your story. It's the sacred inhale before your next beginning. So don't rush this moment. Don't measure it by movement. Just let it be what it is, a divine still point in the flow of eternity, where heaven whispers, "You've done enough. Now rest and watch me work." How? When heaven finishes shaping a chosen one, there is a stillness unlike any other. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the quiet hum of completion, like the world holding its breath before dawn. You can feel it inside you now. The weight is gone. The striving has ceased, and peace has finally taken its throne. This is the moment where purpose no longer needs to be chased, because it has already found its home in you. You are not the same person who began this journey. The wilderness has done its work. The fire has refined you. The waiting has humbled you. And now, standing here, you realize that what you once thought would break you has instead built you. Every lesson, every delay, every tear was a brick in the foundation of the new you. As declared in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." End blank. That is not a poetic suggestion. It is a prophetic declaration. You have been prepared for this very hour. Everything that was stripped away has made room for this light. Everything that was silenced has cleared the stage for this song. You are no longer walking toward destiny, you are walking in it. For so long, you believed that the promise was somewhere ahead, hidden in the distance. But now you can see it was never far away. It was being cultivated inside you all along. The promise wasn't a destination, it was transformation. What God has written in you is not a single chapter of victory, but an entire life that testifies to His faithfulness. You've learned that divine timing cannot be forced, that rushing ahead only leads to exhaustion, that peace, not progress, is the true measure of alignment. You have seen how God works quietly, methodically, often invisibly, until the moment comes when everything falls into place as if it had been effortless all along. That is where you stand now, in the effortless alignment of grace. I once met a painter named Jonah who spent years creating a single piece of art. He said, "For a long time, I thought I was painting the canvas. Then one day, I realized the canvas was painting me." That is what this season has done to you. You thought you were shaping your life, but your life has been shaping you into someone who can hold what you were meant to carry. Now the storms that once terrified you seem smaller. The wounds that once defined you have turned to wisdom. Even the silence that used to feel empty now feels holy. You've learned to dwell in peace without needing proof, to trust the unseen without panic, to walk slowly without losing direction. That is spiritual maturity, the ability to remain calm in the unknown because you know who walks beside you. There is a subtle strength in your stillness now, a quiet authority that comes not from shouting your faith, but from embodying it. You have become like the steady flame of a lantern in the dark, not explosive, but enduring. It doesn't flicker in panic when the wind blows. It simply glows through it. That's how heaven recognizes its warriors, not by noise, but by light. And perhaps that's why your journey had to take this shape. Because God wasn't just teaching you to survive storms, He was teaching you to become the calm within them. You have learned that faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move through it hand in hand with trust. Now, look around your life. What once looked like ruins is beginning to resemble a cathedral. The fragments that once made no sense are now forming a mosaic. You can finally see how every pain had purpose, every detour direction, every silence significance. This is not an ending. It's an awakening, the sacred moment when your eyes finally adjust to the brightness of what you've become. You no longer search for signs because you are one. You no longer pray for miracles because you live as evidence of them. And as you step forward, remember, peace is not fragile. It's eternal. It's the crown that cannot be stolen, the song that cannot be silenced, the light that cannot be dimmed. You carry it now, not as a visitor, but as its vessel. So walk gently, speak truth, and let the light that found you keep finding others through you. For you have become what heaven dreamed you would be, a living reflection of divine endurance, radiant with peace that no storm can touch. This is your new beginning, the sound of stillness, the glow of fulfillment, the quiet of arrival, all proof that what God starts, He always completes. You've reached the end of this message, but not the end of your becoming. What has awakened inside you, the peace, the clarity, the quiet strength is meant to keep flowing. Every word you've heard was a mirror, not a finish line. You've stepped into a rhythm where heaven's breath and your own heartbeat move together. Gently, powerfully. Now, I ask you to let what touched your heart travel further. Press like, not as an act of habit, but as a soft acknowledgement that something inside you shifted. When you do, you're simply saying, "This light found me, and I want it to live." And share this message. If someone's name rises in your heart, let it move quietly through digital spaces like a whisper of hope carried by the wind. You never know whose night it will brighten, whose burden it will ease. Every share is a ripple of compassion, the unseen ministry of the chosen ones. And when the moment feels right, leave a comment below. Write something simple, something honest. Maybe, "I'm still here," or "Peace lives in me now." Your words will join others, forming a chorus of souls that proves light always wins. If you haven't already, subscribe, not as a follower, but as a friend walking the same path. Each message that finds you afterward won't be mere content, it'll be continuation. Another lantern for your next stretch of road. And finally, about giving. Let me speak to your heart. If you ever feel moved to donate, do it not as duty, but as devotion. Let your giving be like rain, soft, voluntary, nourishing. Every drop sustains this flow of messages, keeping them alive for the next soul searching for peace in the dark. Because the light you carry was never meant to stay still. Every act, every click, every share, every quiet gift becomes another spark, lighting the world. Walk forward in peace. Chosen one, you are the living continuation of this message, the proof that heaven's fire has found another flame to dwell in.